just say that there is not a finer physician and or colleague to have your office next to. And I had that pleasure for maybe 3 to 4 years before he moved across the city. Dr. Olson's well known as an actor, musician, and playwright. And I have seen him act and sing in a play that he wrote. And he also plays a pretty mean game of golf. But all that said, you might recognize him as the Medifast spokesperson. And I think, Paul, are you standing next to a cutout in that commercial of your before? I don't. It seems like you are, but you're.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I think
you'll recognize that he says I've lost over 100 pounds, and here's how I've done it. And so we're going to ask Dr. Olson to share how he's done it and how he's kept his weight off. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And for having me back, and I appreciate that too. So, I think that to tell people how I did it and what it's like now, I just, kind of want to talk about how I got there. I mean, that's always kind of the thing. I guess if we start out at the beginning, I tell people that I was born at a very young age. And yeah, but I think the thing was that all through my life as I was growing up as a child and such, I always had this interest in food and candy and things like that. And I got pretty big when I was little, but then I got into sports and I really slimmed down. And then I was in college, put a little bit on. I was in medical school and residency, put a little bit more on. And basically, I really put a bunch on when I was first in practice. And I think that was more, I'd like to call it stress eating, but it's just, freestyle eating, I guess would be a better word, because there's always seems to be some stress going on one way or another. And I went initially to one of the other weight loss programs. It was a little bit more generic, and I looked at it as a competition at that time because I had a lot of sports and competitive and stuff. And I lost a bunch of weight. I lost about 60 pounds, but it wasn't a very good way because I just wasn't eating right. I wasn't eating at all. I did no exercise or anything like that. And just to give you an example, I would hit the golf ball as far as some of my good friends would hit it. And we went up to a golf event and I was 20, 30 yards behind them. So there are ways to lose weight and there are not so good ways to lose weight. And of course, not having had any insight to it at all, I just put it all back on. And then it got more and more and more. And, I'd like to think it was all about life and all about, hardships and all about, joys and celebrations and all that. But I looked at it and I'm pretty sure I was just born this way. I think that's the case. I think there is a genetic thing that creates this situation in us. And I say us because, many of us got to be the weight we were or are through many different ways. But I think there's a basic sameness to all of us. And I think that sameness is a lack of something. And it's, in a scientific fashion, it might be a lack of some sort of a hormone or whatever that we just genetically don't have. And, and sometimes we can overcome that. And sometimes it's really difficult. And sometimes we need some help. But I think the thing is that really got me to the point of what I call desperate willingness was the fact that I was not very happy with myself. And it's not that I really loved myself any time in my life, but I was not happy with myself. I did not like myself. I did not like the way I looked. I just didn't feel good. Self-esteem was low, and all that kind of thing. And you kind of get, and I say we kind of get a unsaid, subconscious self-destructive thought that the only way I can feel good in this life is by eating. And it's not like we're consciously thinking about it, although oftentimes we are. And believe me, I was that way. But I think it was just a situation that set me up. Now, the premise behind this, and I want to let everybody to know this, is that why are some people normal and why are some of us not? And I think that we are born this way. And I think that I have to say that it's not our fault. It's not our fault. We are like this, but we have no way of managing it. Nobody's ever taught us this. Nobody's ever explained it. People will look at you and say, boy, you need to lose some weight. Or, boy, if you don't lose weight, you're going to die. How many times have we all heard that? And look at this, you'll get diabetes and all this other kind of thing, like it was a threat. And when somebody approaches me in that kind of a negative fashion, it's pretty easy to tune them out, and for good reason. I mean, there's some people in this world that really are very difficult to listen to as far as weight loss. One is the real skinny person who's never had to lose weight, and the other is the real big person who has never lost weight but knows every single thing there is to know about losing weight. Okay, so let's put it about 14 years ago. I was at a maximum. I was unhappy. I couldn't really do anything. I could hardly play golf at all. In fact, I was trying to walk 9 holes with Liz, who's my wife, and she likes to play fast. We were just hustling along, and I was getting really short of breath and tired. And this is just 9 holes. I finally looked at her on the 7th hole, and I said, "Are you doing this for the insurance?" And it was, oh boy, at that point in time, it was becoming really obvious. But there's always that bit of denial. There's always that bit of fear. There's always that bit of uncertainty. And it took a good friend of mine to take me out one day for lunch. And some of you have already heard this story, but he took me out to lunch. He sat me in the booth, and I couldn't even fit in the booth. I mean, really, it was so difficult. And I finally did. And I think I still have the red line where it creased my stomach. But he looked at me and he said, "Let's order." I said, "Okay." And according to him, he ordered that little lunch salad and I ordered the right side of the menu. So that was kind of a suggestion. He proceeded to tell me that I was just way overweight and I really needed to do something. Now, I believe in him, and he was a big person at one time as well. And, he really was worried about me, truly worried about me. And he approached it in a gentle fashion. And he basically said, I went to this place, Medifast, as Jeff mentioned, and they took me in and it was really wonderful. And I lost, 25 pounds right away. And I think you should do that. So, again, that phrase, desperate willingness, kicked in. And at that moment in time, I was at a rock bottom. I was absolutely at a rock bottom. Didn't know what to do, didn't know where to go. And he was there. And that's what it takes sometimes, is a good friend who is helpful, not lecturing. We all know, we've all been lectured to. It's, it just doesn't click. How can you listen to that? It just isn't the way we are. So I went over and I said, "Here we go. How about this and that?" And they said, "Well, here, let's see, you can be doing this. Here are our products and all that." And I said, "No, no, no, no. Show me what I can eat." And this was why, it's very helpful to get this kind of help. Show me what I can eat. and they opened up the menu book and the recipe book, and it just exploded off the page, the number of things that I could eat on a regular basis. I mean, it was like I rediscovered good, healthy food. Now, the important thing is that, you do your, statistics, you take your measurements and all that, and you put it in into the calculations and all that kind of a thing. And then they have you come back once a week to weigh in. But the magic here for me, besides being really sick and tired of being the way I was that I had a one-on-one type of situation. I had a person that was interested in me, truly interested. And I would meet and talk. And I would go home with the information I had. And Liz, my best and greatest supporter, would do exactly what I needed to do. She helped me out a great deal. And that's what we need. We need somebody to support us, not lecture us. And as soon as I started losing some weight, I started to feel better. I started to actually feel better about myself. I could actually look at myself in the mirror, even though, I hadn't gotten down to where I was, but I could look at myself in the mirror because I didn't hate myself so much. I could actually do that. And it's an amazing feeling when that burden is lifted off your shoulders, when you actually start doing something. And it doesn't have to be great, I mean, 5 pounds into this thing, and I was feeling like a winner. And I think that's what we do. We have to get a win under our belt sometimes. And there were times, when I would go through this, there were times when I'd lose several pounds, and there were times when I'd just like lose 1 pound. And I got this thing, thought in my head. And I tell this to a lot of my patients who need to, get some weight off, or are losing some weight, but aren't making a lot of progress. And it's very simple. Every pound is sacred. Every pound that you can take off is the right direction. And it's a good direction. It's a successful direction, and it's a win. It doesn't seem like much, and sometimes it seems like you're just trying to drink the ocean 1 teaspoon at a time, but it really pays off. I learned that if I can do that, I can keep doing it. One of the things that I learned was that instead of thinking about my ultimate goal, which is kind of a setup for a failure, actually, I would think, how much can I lose this week? And I would just focus on it 1 week at a time. And, I had the calculations and all that, and I tried to follow them the best of my abilities. And, oh, by the way, I was not perfect. And perfection is a quick road to failure. If you think you have to be perfect, as many of us have experienced, you go on a diet and you lose some weight, and you're doing pretty good. And then something comes along and you kind of lose track of that, and you're on your own, and, with not any real help. And the next thing you know, you go out for dinner, and 6 months later, you say, maybe I should try to lose some weight. And I think we've all had that kind of experience where we just need support. We need some help. We need somebody to be in our corner, to know that this is a tough situation to be in. And that if we can just move the needle a little bit, even just a little bit, it's a big win for us. We overcome all sorts of obstacles, and we overcome ourselves, and we can feel better about ourselves, which was something that I hadn't done for years and years and years. And it's a wonderful feeling. It's a wonderful feeling. Now, the deal here was that I was, heading into a certain amount of weight loss each week, and it varied, and it was fluctuant, and this and that, and sometimes it was a little, and sometimes it was not too bad. And ultimately, I was able to keep my head in the game. I was really focused on the fact that this is going to be different for me. I've got all these people on my side. I'm eating all this food that's so healthy and everything. I didn't really feel all that, hungry at all because of the pattern they set up and all this kind of a thing. And it worked for me. That was what worked for me. I needed somebody. A one-on-one situation oftentimes is very helpful. For me, it was, a coach, so to speak. It's always good to have somebody who's encouraging you, because we've had it the other way. When I'm in the clinic and people have heard that I've lost a bunch of weight and everything like that, and they want to lose some weight, I pretty much go through a lot of this talk. I go through the talk that allows us to understand that it wasn't so much our fault, but we are pretty much born this way. And it manifests itself in our brains and our thought processes. And I think that what happens is all you have to do is have some bully come up to you and say, "Hey, fatso," when you're a kid, and the trigger is pulled at that point. Or you go through some kind of physical trauma or stress or something that is entirely different. And a lot of women experience that with pregnancy. And afterwards, quite a number of women will gain weight for whatever reason. But I think it's because we're just deficient in that one thing. Now, I was able to not have to take any medications or surgery or anything like that. And I think it was because my desperation really overcame any of my deficiencies. And it kind of rewires your brain. And what happens is if we can stay with this, if we can be what we need to be, what we would like to be, then our brains get rewired a little bit and we get better and we become, and I hate to use this phrase, but we become more normal. you know, Nobody's ever accused me of being that, but I like to think that I can eat like somebody normal instead of back in the day when I would go to the gas station for gas, fill up twice a week, and groceries 7 days a week. And we all know what kind of groceries you get at the gas station. And that never happened after that. Yeah, sure, you'd have something to bring home or something along those lines, but boy, it wasn't anything like it had used to be. So I think that one of the things that I always let people know is that if you are having medical issues and weight loss is going to be one of the most important things to focus on, it doesn't take much weight loss to start showing improvement in those medical problems. I've had people that have, high blood pressure, their sugars are up, their cholesterol's up, and all that kind of thing. And after 5 to 10 pounds, these things are already looking better. So it's not like you have to get all the way down to what you think you need to be. You just have to get started. That's it. And you have to have that level of, I guess, desperate willingness to really get it going. Again, all of us have reached our situation from a different angle, from a different, from different families, from different life, from different situations and everything. But the bottom line is we all are the same. We all are the same. And we can all be together and we can all support each other. And I think it feels so wonderful. Again, like I said, it's like this burden is lifted off my shoulders. It's like, I don't care what people think about me. It's none of my business, but I care about what I think of me. And just a few pounds at a time really makes that a difference. Now, we have medications now that also help us. Now, here's my theory. If, in fact, we're born this way, if, in fact, it's a DNA or a genetic type of a thing, and if it might be that we're born with like a deficiency of something, these new medications seem to be something that fulfills that. It's like a diabetic who needs insulin. It's like a person with high blood pressure who needs medication. It is something that, although it's not the thing, but it's close, and it helps fill that gap, that void, that deficiency that I think of. Uh, it's not for everybody, obviously, but it is, in theory, or in my theory, is that there are some of us that just need it, and there are some of us that can do it without the medication. It just takes time and patience and willingness, and that first couple of pounds off. So I think the thing is that I went into this whole thing. My life was one of ups and downs. And the bottom line was, there was this whole thing about low self-esteem, self-loathing, shame. Oh my gosh, shame. I couldn't eat in front of people. All these types of things, all these things that I'm thinking, here's what people are thinking of me. I have no business thinking about that. Because this is great. What I think they're thinking of me is what I really think I'm thinking of me, if that makes sense. So what other people think of me is none of my business. And I think that's what we have to kind of look at, because we have to think about ourselves, and we have to just be good about it. You notice I say we a lot. And again, I think we are all the same or very similar underneath, at the very core, and that there is hope for us. There's hope for us. I've been able to keep the weight off for the most part, but let me tell you this, there is no such thing as staying at the same weight. It's, I can't see how that happens. It's the way weight loss works, and the way it manages, it's an up and down thing. You get this up and down and up and down and up and down. And it doesn't have to be a big up and down, but it is going to happen. And what comes on goes off, and what goes off might come on. And overall, if you can keep it in a very narrow category, it's going to be great. Sure, okay, okay, I'll confess. I got a confession. Okay, so 13 years into this thing, I got a little cocky, and that's what sometimes happens. And I wound up gaining 20 pounds. I'd lost about 110, but I wound up gaining 20. Now, there are situations where in the past I would have thought, well, I'm done, and I would have gained it all back. But the organization that I was working with, which is Medifast, now called Livia, but I mean, that's just the thing that works for me, is they wanted to go with a medical part of the program. And I was talking with Dr. Baker, and that is a thing that is a very real thing and a very helpful thing in many types of weight loss programs, although the way to get there is a little different. In this situation, they retaught me how to eat. Because I was getting cocky, and I, thought I could do anything. I forgot about how I got the weight off to begin with. So they wanted to do this, and they wanted a test case. So I was a test subject. I was a guinea pig. I went on one of the medications, and it was a whole different world for me at that point. It was like, I just am not craving so much. I'm just not all that hungry all the time. And the 20 pounds came off, you know. I still had some of that desperate willingness left in me. I still had some of that knowledge and intrinsic need to succeed. And it came off. And now I'm down to where I was. Actually, I'm down to under where I was initially when I lost 107 pounds. So I tell you, it's a lot easier to do things. There are things that we used to do that all of a sudden we can start doing some of them again. Of course, when you get old like me, there are a lot of things that you may as well just forget about trying to do, regardless of what size you are. But it's nice to know that we can actually start doing things that we couldn't do before, or that we did long ago, that we can do again. It's nice to know that people don't have to shake their finger at us, lecture us, and all that kind of thing, because that never works. In fact, it's just the exact opposite. If somebody were to tell me, don't eat that ice cream, the only thing I hear is, eat that ice cream. And I think a lot of us understand that, it's really that way. It's not necessarily we're doing it on our terms. We're doing it with an open mind and an open heart. And that's what we need. We need this and we need this. And when we can do that, and when we can get up enough courage and get that first pound or two off, because we know that we can, it's scary. There's sometimes it's very fearful. And I had some fear and trepidation going into this, thinking, well, what's going to become of me? But, I just thought I got to put my faith in the people that are putting their faith in me. And it works, the fear starts to slip away as we start to make some progress. And boy, stand back, because now nothing's going to stop us. Nothing's going to stop us. So all I can say is, it just takes getting started. It takes somebody to rah, cheer you on, not lecture you. I think that the problem with some people is they want to fix us so badly, then when they can't, they just get mad at us and lecture us. I think we all know that's the case. So, it's one of those things where, well, thank you for your input, and then walk on. So I don't know if that's helpful for anybody out there, but I learned a lot. I changed a lot only because I needed to, and I wanted to, and I had help. And it's hard to do alone, because if you do it alone, you get lonely. So I think that no matter what, it's always good to have somebody in your corner, somebody that's helpful, somebody that's really positive. But more important, it's okay. It's okay for us to do this. And so, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to field some, or if anybody else has something to say, that would be great. This is about as much as I can say without starting to get in trouble.
Thank you, Dr. Olson. Dr. Baker, did you want to ask or share yours before I stop the recording?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording and